This message is titled Satan in the Toy Box. The satanic strategy against our children. In the book of Revelation chapter 12, there is a symbolism of a woman who is pregnant with an infant. There is the imagery of a dragon. The Greek word dragon there is actually a serpent. And a serpent in the heavens is standing by, ready to devour the child, and it's a boy, it's a man-child, the moment that it comes out of that woman's womb. Without going into detail, the imagery is Israel and Satan's attempt to destroy Israel in order to attempt to prevent the Messiah, who is Christ, from coming into the earth. Revelation 12:4 says it this way: the tail of the dragon drew a third of the stars of heaven, and it cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman which is ready to be delivered to devour her child as soon as it was born. I want to begin by making a statement, and that is this, that history reveals all the way back to the time of the Exodus, that when you are about to enter within a generation, it starts within a generation, when you're about to enter a prophetic season, there is an all-out assault on babies. There is an all-out assault on the preborn, and there is all-out assault on infants. Think about this. We do know the story of how Pharaoh told the midwives that if you see a Hebrew boy born, throw him into the river. That river was full of alligators. And literally they would take a newborn baby and throw it into the river so the alligator could eat it. Now some suggest that this was a sacrifice to a god that the Egyptians had that was an alligator god. It has an Egyptian name. We won't go into that. Others just suggest it was a way of getting rid of the Hebrew infants, of which I believe from the text that it was. However, I want you to notice the timing of the event. The timing of the event was 40 years before the Exodus. In the book of Psalms, 40 is a number of an actual generation. So one generation prior to the event taking place of which the children of Israel would be delivered from bondage, children come under a horrible attack. Now go into the New Testament to a man by the name of Herod. And Herod has heard that a king baby has been born in Bethlehem. The Bible says that he sent Roman soldiers into Ramah, which is a 10-mile radius, and had every infant under 2 years of age slaughtered. Now that event happened 28 years before the public ministry of Jesus was to begin. Once again, within a generation. In 1973, in the United States of America, there was a court case called Roe versus Wade. That court case introduced something that Americans had never realized or seen before. Abortion was done privately and done behind the scenes, but the federal government, through the Supreme Court, passed a law making it legal for abortion on demand. 1973, if you look at it on the Hebrew calendar, the Hebrew year, and you translate the Hebrew letters into number values and back and forth, it actually forms an acronym, the Year of the Skeleton, which is very, very, very unique and very, very, very odd to say the least. But my point is that children came under attack prior to, within a generation, let's say 30 to 40 years, within a generation when things were about to happen which were going to involve a nation or a destiny or the ministry of Christ or the deliverance of the children of Israel. The question I'd like to ask you is this: why are children becoming alcoholics now at age 11 and 12? Why are children and teenagers running away from home all over the country? Why are teenagers cutting themselves in their arms to release pressure that they feel in their life? Why are teenagers committing suicide? Why are teenagers refusing to attend church? Why are teenagers being attracted to the wrong friends? And why has the battle moved from teenagers to children? Well, there's a lot of reasons we could give, but let me talk to you from the spiritual application. Number one, there is a promise that has been given to the last generation of people living on the planet. And that promise is Acts chapter 2, Joel chapter 2, and that promise is that in the last days, sons and daughters are going to prophesy, and the Spirit of God is going to be poured out upon all flesh. There is a promise upon the generation of sons and daughters, and that generation of sons and daughters that experiences that outpouring will be the generation, get ready, that will see the return of the Lord. Psalms 102 says that there will be a generation that will be created that will be praisers. They are created to praise God. The second thing I would suggest to you is this, that the enemy understands that in America, for example, there is an older generation raised in church. There's an older generation that knows their Bible. There's an older generation that still pay tithe. But he sees a younger generation coming up, and he's trying to keep them out of the Word, keep them from attending church, keep them from seeing the significance of giving. Why? Because the older people have the wisdom, but the younger people have the zeal. See, I can preach long if I want to, but I can't lay hands on 500 and 600 people a night the way I did in Pulaski, Virginia for 5 weeks every night, because my body will not allow me to do so. But see, I've got some young people raising up that I'll say, we're going to have 4,000 young people at Warrior Fest, 5,000. Line up, we're going to lay hands on everybody in the building, and they'll pray till they drop. What I'm trying to tell you is there's an older generation that's got wisdom. There's a younger generation that's got zeal, and you can't live just off of wisdom when you don't have zeal, and you sure enough can't live off of zeal when you don't have wisdom. And the devil knows if you can ever get the young people lined up with the old people and the old people lined up with the young people, you'll have zeal full of wisdom, and you'll have the older people getting refired up again to see their children and grandchildren touched by the power of Almighty God. The adversary has always, however, targeted youth. And I'm not talking about just in the last days. Here's the reason why. When you change a nation's belief, you do so through changing their cultural ideas, and you do so by destroying their religion. And you can do it successfully in one generation. I'm going to talk to you very briefly about two things. I'm going to talk to you how communism became so powerful in a short time. And I'm going to talk to you about how Nazism and the Third Reich became so popular in a short period of time. I will not be talking about, although this is a part of it, that the threats of death and the threats of arrest cause people to turn to those systems to protect themselves. That is a big part of it. But I want to talk to you about how they got into the minds of young people. In 1917 was the social revolution that took place in Russia. It was that uprising of the workers. That's why the emblem of communism was a sickle and a hammer. The idea behind communism was this: the czars had become rich. The czars and their inner circle used the common people for their own benefit. The czars have the gold and the silver and the wealth and the outfits and the money and the influence. But look at the poor common people working in the field. But we will do this. We'll bring everybody on the same level. We'll make everybody equal. We'll make sure everybody has equal pay. And so using this, an uprising took place in the days of Lenin and Stalin, and they introduced something called communism. We call it communism. Communism is where everybody wears the same type of clothes, everybody's given the same type of food, everybody's given the same type of pay, and everybody's given just one job to do for the state. What people never realized is what communism does to the emotions and the creativity of a person. If all you do all your life is sweep a broom and get paid the same amount of money, your motivation of living and your motivation to have stuff begins to die. If you all live in the same kind of apartment with the same type of furniture and the same color, suddenly you become more like a robot in human existence. You You become a living being that's being puppeted and by the puppet masters of the Communist Party. What was so weird is communism didn't even do what it said it was going to do for their upper echelon, because it was the upper echelon that still came up with the money, and the upper echelon had the big food, and the upper echelon had the clothes, while the common people did the work. So in reality, nothing much changed other than the oppression of the people. Now let's talk about this for a moment. This is how communism got to the young people. The first thing they did is they began to ban all Bible reading and collect all Bibles, making it illegal to own a Bible or have a Bible in public places. Sounds like what they did in the Supreme Court when they took Bible reading out of public school. They then banned all prayer in any form, either in school or public places, because a lot of people do not realize that before communism existed, there were a lot of Christian schools, Catholic schools. They wouldn't have been Catholic, they would have been Russian Orthodox schools that were in Russia. And so they banned the Bible, they banned prayer, they banned any Christian teaching, they banned all Christian teachers from coming into the state schools, and they banned all Christian schools, and eventually they banned all homeschooling. Now, we're already headed there, whether you believe it or not. We're headed there in the fact that we have banned God from school, we have banned the Bible reading from school, we have banned prayer from school. But not only have we banned it from school, we're now banning it from public places. You got to get a permit to even pray. You go to a state house and they'll say, you can say God, but don't say Jesus. And now there's even efforts being made by the educational administrations in Washington, D.C., not your local level, not your people on school boards in the counties, but I know people in the D.C. area that said they're wanting to stop all homeschooling. They want to bring, because the homeschooling mom and dad can tell their child homosexuality is wrong. The homeschooling mom and dad can tell their kids premarital sex is wrong. But see, in the public school, they don't do that. They can't talk about that. So God does not exist. The Bible does not exist. And so the educational leadership in Washington, D.C. would love to control the young people of America by pulling them away. You act like I don't know what I'm talking about. Don't you make me go there. Don't you make me go there. Because they want to do their best to stop the influence of the mother and the father, get the child while they are young, to brainwash them into the ethics of the culture of today and to do away with their religious upbringing. In the public schools of Russia, they began to break down the children that were Christians in public. Gideon Shore, whose parents were from Russia, said to me, he said, my grandparents told me about it before they got out of Russia, and said that what would happen is that the Christian kids would come, or Christian kids or kids that believed in God would come, and they would say, now children, let's pray to God for your food. And the little Christian kids would fold their arms and ask God for food. And they would wait, and the teacher would say, oh my, it looks like God has done nothing for you. Maybe he doesn't exist. This went on in classrooms every day. And finally they'd say, pray to Father Stalin for your food. And they would stand up, and the communist kids would pray to Stalin, and they would bring a cart in with apples and nuts and candy on it and feed the kids. Pretty soon the kids that were Christians were telling their mom and daddy, who were secret Christians, who were trying to hide it, there is no God. God doesn't exist. Well, how do you know? Because when we pray, he doesn't answer. They started brainwashing them in the public school, and then they came out with what is called the Communist Red Book, which was called the Communist Manifesto. Now, having said that, it starts in 1917. It comes all the way through, and even Cuba is still communist, and North Korea is still communist, and China is still communist. And every one of those regimes, you check it out, are poverty-stricken. Every one of those regimes are oppressive to the people, and every one of those regimes, there's nothing but depression and oppression in the entire land. Now, J. Edgar Hoover in the 1960s did an FBI study called Communist Targeting Youth. Now, you listen to this, moms moms and dads. Lenin, who was involved with early communism, said, quote, "The youth will decide the issue of the entire struggle." One of the things they did, I'm about to preach right here. One of the things they did was they began to say, you cannot be a teacher unless you are a full-fledged communist. The best jobs were given to people who were communists. If they ever thought that you believed in a deity, if they thought you believed in God and you said it publicly, you got arrested because you were coming against the state. Now, I don't know if you really understand where things are going. And since I do have a little liberty to still preach this, because by next year they might ban me from preaching this, the administration might, but since they're not banning me yet, I'm going to tell you. If you want to know what the Kim Davis issue is about right now, I'm going to tell you what it's about. Because I'm going to tell you what the gays and lesbians are saying behind the scene. They want to make an example of that woman and make it illegal to say, if you are a Christian, you don't believe like us, we do not need Christians elected in public places. They're going to try to do away with Christians being elected in public places and say we are not tolerant. Everybody's equal. Listen, if everybody's equal, how come they don't give me liberty to believe what I believe? They want me to believe what they believe. They want to force their belief on me, but they're not giving me liberty to believe what I believe. This thing is supposed to work both ways. Last time I checked, I'm not in Russia. Last time I checked, I'm not in North Korea. Last time I checked, I'm not in Cuba. Last time I checked, there was a Constitution of the United States and a Bill of Rights that gives me freedom, not from religion, but freedom of religion, for me to have the right to believe what I want to believe. So the same spirit that came in under communism, that began to say Christians are intolerant, and if they have a belief, lock them up. If that belief is against the law, lock them up. If that belief is against the state, lock them up. Look, I know America's in denial. I'm going to say it. If it makes you mad, I'm sorry it makes you mad. Don't you get mad at that man, you get mad at me. I told you 8 years ago you had a Muslim president. Do you remember? I told you, read his book. Read, his daddy was a Muslim, his stepdad was a Muslim, everybody in his family was a Muslim. Reverend Wright, ex-Muslim. He's friends with Louis Farrakhan. There's pictures of it. And I told you he wouldn't like Israel. I told you he wouldn't like the leadership of Israel. I told you he wouldn't support the Jews. And some of you got up and walked out on me because of his color. I am tired. I am sick and tired of a man like me preaching prophecy and trying to straighten a situation out and telling you how it is, and you call me a racist. It's not about color. It's about character. It has nothing to do with color. It's character. Well, you just made me mad. I'm sorry. You need to get over it, and you need to wake up, because we're going to lose our country if we don't wake up, pray up, straighten up, and get the thing straightened out. Well, now you're just making an outlandish statement. You don't know that. You go and find the quotes from people who are Muslim who know him. When a man for 3 years won't have the Christian day of prayer, but 4 years in a row has Ramadan and starts quoting the Holy Quran and calls it holy. See, I'm telling you something. I'm making a point. We don't think it'll happen here. We really don't think we're going to lose freedom. We really don't think that they're not going to arrest Christians. They're already arresting Christians. Help me, Jesus. In 1959, the Communist Party USA launched a campaign that worked to get into America's universities. The majority of Ivy League professors that are older, that came into the 60s with their teaching, are socialist or communist. And it makes no sense, because if you look at the poverty, the fear, and the oppression, who would want to live under that? How did Hitler take a nation over? This is interesting. How did Hitler do it? He did it with what's called, partially, we're talking about young people, the Hitler Youth Movement. The Nazi Party started in 1922, long before Hitler, but Hitler began to train and recruit what's called a paramilitary group between the ages of 14 to 18. He began to recruit and train future members for the Nazi Party so that if something ever happened to him, they would keep the Nazi Party or the Third Reich going. These were known as the Storm Regiment. By 1940, the regiment had reached 8 million youth in the movement. Now, Germany was called Mother Germany, and Hitler was considered the father. And that's, if you've ever heard him addressed, you'll understand that. The father of Germany, and Germany itself was the mother. They began to train, and I know you've heard of this, what's called an Aryan race. The perfect race, according to Hitler, was blonde hair and blue-eyed. And if you were blonde-haired and blue-eyed in Germany, you were very fortunate because you were very well favored. However, if you happened to be Jewish, you were in serious trouble. I remember a woman coming to me in Orange County, California. And I'm going to go ahead and say this since I previously said what I said. She's a partner of my ministry, and she's 85 years of age. She may have gone to be with the Lord, because the last time I preached at Jensen's church in Orange County, she was not there. And Robbie will remember this because she shocked me. It was 2009. And Jensen asked me to go to Orange County to preach at his church, and we had a massive crowd show up. It was unbelievable. We couldn't get him in the building. Police are directing traffic. It was a wonderful move of God. I met with my partners. They wheeled her downstairs. She introduced herself. She was 85 years of age, and she was a survivor of the Holocaust, a survivor of Hitler's Germany. She told me this story. And she says, when I was a girl of 5 years of age in Berlin, Hitler came through in his car, and he would have his own personal car, and he would have a car in the front, two cars in the front, and two in the back. It was a security team, but it was also his chief men. And normally, he would wave, and every now and then he'd get out of the car. And she said, this happened to me. She says, I never will forget the crowd. She said, women passed out when they saw him. They literally swooned until they passed out. They said he was like a god to the German people. And she says, now look, I am blonde-haired, and I'm blue-eyed, and I'm a Jew. And he stops the car. She says, there are tens of thousands of people on the parade route. And he stops the car directly in front of where me and my parents are behind me, and I'm in the front of the line. And I'm just doing what everybody else does. And he walked out of the car, and he turned and walked straight toward me. He took his hands and put my head in his hands with both of his hands and said in German, what a beautiful blonde-haired, blue-eyed Aryan girl. And she said, I was Jewish. And the moment, this woman told me, Robbie, you'll remember this. This woman told me, the moment he touched me, a demon was transferred. She's in a wheelchair crying. And she said, it took me. She said, the reason I survived the Holocaust is that my parents got a Christian family to get me out under a false name. She says, that's how I got out while everybody else died. And she says, it took me 45 years to get the demon off of me that Adolf Hitler put on me when he touched me with his hands. So I want you to listen to what he did that was so successful. Now, in Germany, at the time that the Third Reich came and Hitler became popular, he understood, please hear this, folks, this is important. He understood the power of taking youth and training them in indoctrination for the Nazi Party. However, there were three things that were secretly done that later became public after the fall of the regime. Number one, the Boy Scout movement, which did exist back then, was completely banned from Germany. By the way, ours is now being infiltrated by certain men. Number two, the propaganda, watch this, the propaganda was so strong. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going ahead of myself. So what happened was this. They trained the young people to go into churches. Now, this is not Russia, communism, because Hitler hated communists. I don't know if you know that. He would train his young people to go into youth movements and break up the youth movement and stir up anti-Christian doctrine to re-indoctrinate the Christian youth. Now, what the communists did was shut it down completely, so that I call it the food source of the prayer and the word and the spirit is not allowed to get to the youth. Hitler, on the other hand, doesn't cut off the source, which are the churches, because the German church, German Lutheran church, was very strong. But he said, instead of trying to shut the churches down, his guys said this: let's train youth to go in and themselves cause problems in the youth group to cause confusion to make kids leave. Number two, they used spies to spy on Bible studies and religious classes to report back to the leaders as to who the leaders were and were they speaking against the leadership. I'll give you a nugget. This is a fact. Facebook. In 2009, when our leader took power in the White House, one of the first things he did was he went to a certain department in the government, pulled off 150 men that were following terrorism, and put 150 men on Facebook and said, monitor everything negative said about me, and put them under 4 colors. If you've ever gone on Facebook and said anything negative about Obama, the administration, or anybody in it, you are flagged in a red color. But the reason for that, and I'm not trying to spook you, this is just a fact, and the reason for that is if they ever call martial law, you'll be the first person arrested. And FEMA camps are not fake. FEMA camps exist. And they exist for different reasons than you're being told. Y'all still here? Oh, y'all don't want to hear this. I'm sorry, this is not my normal prophecy crowd. This is the Sunday morning crowd. Sorry, because some of you can't take it, okay? I understand. Just bear with me. I'll have you out in 15 minutes. You need to hear. You need to hear this, because you're going to sleep like Samson does in the lap of the devil and wake up with nothing. I'm stirred up. Let me tell you why I'm stirred up. I'm stirred up. I love this country. I like what I've seen in this country. I like growing up here, but it's changing in front of my eyes into something and morphing into something that not only I don't understand and don't like, but it's contrary to the book. So if we shut up and don't say anything, where are we going to end up? We'll end up like Germans. We'll end up like Bonhoeffer, who got arrested for speaking out against Hitler. And we'll end up like 30,000 preachers dead in Siberia because they spoke out against communism. So I'm stirred up. Well, I wish I hadn't come. Well, you are here now, so just endure it. Just put up with it. Hallelujah. Hitler Youth were also assigned to interfere with church attendance, and the plan was to get as many youth as possible involved in his movement. Again, the numbers grew to 8 million. The propaganda was so strong and positive that any young person who was not a part of the Hitler Youth movement felt left out. Therefore, they felt forced to join because they felt left out. All right, now, it's not Nazism, communism, fascism that concerns me. Here's what concerns me is what our youth are now believing. I'm going to give you 5 things in 5 minutes. Number 1, evolution is being taught. Evolution basically says God created nothing because God does not exist. Everything you have on the earth evolved. I never understood the chart we used to have in school, 3rd grade. There was a monkey, right? And the monkey got bigger, and taller, and his jaw was way out here. Remember the jaw? And the jaw went do, and finally became a person. So, here we are now, Homo erectus, or whatever they call us. Here we are standing there here. Now, I could not figure out why, if we were bent over and we were still going back, how come we weren't walking like this by now? Because we were bent over, and our spines should be And the other thing I never could figure out is why wasn't my jaw back here? I mean, it was out here and it was here. Oh, y'all ain't getting this. I need to go. I'm just a kid in third grade trying to figure out what this chart's about. Now, I can prove to you. Let me just say this. Why would you want to, look, it takes more faith to believe in evolution than it does God. They've got more holes. 3 scientists will totally differ on how we all got here. They'll differ on the years. They'll differ on how it took place. And I can change all that I can change all that with 4 words: in the beginning, God. And all you have to do is just believe that we're not by accident, we're not by chance. There was a creator that had to put all this together. I don't want to go into all this, but it's true. But I can prove to you today, man did not come from a monkey. Ready? Monkeys take care of their kids. All right. Now, these are dangerous beliefs. Belief number 2 is what I call the self-God belief. Now, this is being taught in colleges. You are your own God. You make up your own rules. You do not need religion of any kind because religion is a crutch for weak people. So therefore, make up the rules as you go. Tell that to the policeman who pulled you over for speeding. Right, James? I was going 80. Well, I'll make up the rules. I got a hot rod. You know, I'm my own God. Good. I'm writing you out a ticket. See you in court. Number 3, the next thing being taught is that there are no absolutes, meaning nothing is wrong or necessarily right. It just depends on how you feel about it. Now, folks, if everybody believed this, then you could do this. Well, murder's not wrong, and I'm just going to go kill who I want. Well, lying's not wrong. And I've stole from the boss, but I'm just going to lie and blame it on that guy over there. You would have utter chaos in the workplace, in schools, and in businesses if everybody just determined their own what was right and what was wrong. And by the way, so you'll know this, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, and the writings of our founding fathers are all based on Scripture. Go research it. And there is a reason for that. Number four, and this is getting really freaky. They're now teaching that your sex is changeable. And in some places, like California, in some counties, they are trying to become gender neutral. They're saying the locker rooms should have guys and girls. And the bathrooms should have a guy and a... You just need to open up the bathrooms to whosoever will. Right. And let the pervs go in the women's bathroom. Come on, somebody. And there would be women going into men's bathrooms. Boy, oh boy. Can I say this? They're trying to change the gender of people. What's that tennis player guy that... Yeah. You know, look, he wants to be a woman. Let me just say this. A dog cannot become a cat. And a cat, it's impossible. Even if a cat start barking, it's still a cat. Even if a dog start meowing, he's still a four-legged, fuzzy, long-nosed dog. A blood mammal is either a male or a female. And I have never known, and maybe it exists, and it's a mystery to me, but I have never known of 2 blood mammals that were female mammals to procreate, nor have I ever known of 2 blood mammals that were male to procreate. As far as I know, it takes a female mammal and a male mammal to procreate. So, I suggest to people, if they don't know what sex they are, go to a doctor for an examination and he will tell you on your paper after you check out. Look, I'm just being serious. I have filled out hundreds of papers at doctors' offices and it says M or F. I've never seen one with a box that said, question mark. when you fill it out, M is for male, F is for female. There is no half and half. There's no question. There's no question mark. And so what they're doing, they're trying to confuse the mind of, see, look, we're older. We know this stuff's crazy. You and I know it's silly. You and I know it ain't gonna work. We got the Bible to show us what works through almost 4,000 years of history. But a younger generation that's gullible can fall for this and think, and same-sex relations, it really in school now, there's so much of this in the public setting that it's gotten. I want to say something. Let me go off of this. I want to say this very sincerely. I think as a church, our issue should not be just same-sex relations. It should be the question, what got us here? Really? What got us here to so many women, young girls, don't want to be with a guy? Was it molestation? Was it rape? Was it abuse? Is that the root? What got us here that so many guys, and I'm going to say this, are effeminate? America is feminizing men. I got a few of them in our ministry down there. I'm going to have to teach them how to re-walk. God didn't call you to shake your booty, sir, when you're walking down the aisle like this, just shaking your booty. Is that okay, Pastor? Pastor Chuck's getting scared. Pastor, I didn't know I was going this way. I promise you I did. I'd have warned you if I'd have known it. Am I telling the truth? And look, God made you, young man, God made you with hips for your pants, not your knees. I don't want to see your backside. I'm not interested in looking at you. Walking around there with your pants hanging down to the ground. Pants on the ground, looking like a fool with the pants on the ground. And I'm going to say this for you young folks that are here. You know, don't be 25 years old and all you do your whole life is play video games upstairs. And don't even know how to pick up a Phillips screwdriver and undo a bolt in a house. And you're going to get married? You're going to get married and can't even fix a screen door. Come on, I feel like taking some of these boys and just saying, come on, get some mud out there. All y'all throw them in the mud and roll them around a little bit. Rough them up a little bit. They don't know how to shoot a gun. They don't know how to hunt. They don't know how to can you put the worm on the hook? Ooh, the worms are gross. I'll put a worm on that hook, sissy. I'm in West Virginia. I can get by with preaching up here. I might not be able to get by down in Florida, but I'm in West Virginia where there's some real men. Do I have any real men in the house in Huntington, West Virginia who understand what it's like to be a guy, that understand that guys love girls, that understand men marry women, that understand you cannot have a baby unless you're a man and woman? Does anybody understand? I do not know why I'm getting so. God help me, Lord. I got to get through this. I've got to get through this. Now, I want to tell you, I'm going to give you real quick. Pam, what are you laughing at, baby? She's just roaring on the front row. She don't ever get that way. Did I say something? I want to share with you very quickly, though, on two aspects and help you to understand what our youth are dealing with. There are boards, there are games that are being played. And one, I don't want you to look this up. I don't want your kids to mess with this. It's called Charlie Charlie. And they put a pencil on a pencil and they say, Charlie, Charlie. And the pencil starts spinning. And kids will run to their room screaming, scared to death. And there's no logic as to how this is happening. It's not a trick. It's not strings. It's a demon. And kids that start playing these games who do it for fun can't sleep at night. Then they start having nightmares at night, and then they start seeing things in their room at night. The Ouija board is demons. I tried to play one time, and it scared me because that thing started moving on its own. Now, I'm not going to tell you how it operates. I'm not going to tell you the ancient Egyptian principle that makes it operate. But that's not an angel. That's not a dead person. That's what's called a familiar spirit. They even had a hanging games where kids would go on the internet and play this hanging game, and they died by playing the hanging game. So the occult is becoming very popular. Listen to me carefully. The second thing that's becoming very popular is talking to the dead. And I want to say this to you totally based on the Bible. There is something called necromancy that is forbidden in the Bible, and that is consulting people who are dead. Now, I know of people that have had a loved one die, and that loved one would appear to them in a vision or into a dream, or they would see that person, but they're not in there talking to them, carrying on some convocation, and the person never called them out from the grave or called them out of paradise to talk to them. They had a dream, they had a vision, and sometimes the dream and the vision brought comfort to them when they saw that person, and it took the grief and sorrow. That can happen. Moses was dead 1,500 years and appeared before Jesus. That's a very rare example, but to consult dead, to try to get information from them, is strictly wrong. And when Saul consulted a witch and they called up Samuel, it was not Samuel. Dake makes notes of 8 points as to why it wasn't Samuel, and I don't have time to get into that, but I wanted to share this with you very quickly. The other thing is haunted houses. Now, folks, can I tell you something? The most ridiculous programs ever put on TV are people going into a haunted house. Here's why. A branch brushes up against a window. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Yeah, I heard it. And let me just say this. Can I say this? If you go looking for God, you'll find him. You really will. But can I say this? If you go looking for demons, you'll get them. I'm really serious. So you want to go play in some haunted house, help yourself, not me. I'm going to be sleeping sound in my bed with an angel in the front and an angel behind me while you're out there conjuring up some demon that's going crazy. Here's the dangers, and I'll get to the final point here in a moment. Pornography opens up the door to spirits, but it also messes with the chemical alignment of the brain, and people that study that know more detail, of course, than I do on that subject, but it's dangerous. Occult games can release familiar spirits. Number 3, illegal drugs not only open up a portal in the mind where people can actually see. Listen, I had a friend of mine that was smoking mushrooms one time. I wasn't smoking with him, by the way. I just thought I'd tell you. He told me the story. And him and another guy saw the same thing. They saw a television set, and a demon, he said it was the ugliest demon spirit you ever saw in your life come out of that TV set, and it pointed to my friend whose mama was praying for him, and the demon said, "Your mama's prayers aren't doing a thing for you," and started laughing. And then he went like this, and his friend said, "Did you just see that?" His friend. He said, "See, did you just see that?" He said, "Yeah, it came out of the TV and said to you that your mama's prayer." I mean, 2 guys saw the same thing. That's not hallucination when 2 guys see the exact same thing. Hank Davis, who got on drugs and got delivered many years ago, said there were 17 kids in the room taking drugs, and every kid that was an ex-Christian, every kid, there were 7 of them that were, you know what I'm saying, raised in church, they're away from God, out of 17, all saw the same demon walk through the wall. None of the center kids saw it. All the kids saw it. So illegal drugs opens up portals to spirits. Alcohol can be a bondage, but it can also be a spirit. I've never understood, you go to an ABC store and right up there in the sign it says spirits. I mean, it should be telling you something. You're going to get into some things. Again, all these bondages open up portals. And I want to get real serious about this for just a moment. I know I've been cutting up with you and kind of preaching hard. But look, I don't preach hard to preach hard. I'm not up here just doing this to do this. When I tell you how serious it is, it's serious. Okay? And what we need to do as believers is quit being so offended sensitive and toughen up when we hear the Word of God and start listening to the Word and let it help us. Stir us up. You know, uproot stuff. Stir us up. Certain types of printed material can open the door to unclean spirits. Certain types of perversions can, in fact, if you'll read the book of Leviticus, it says if a dad goes into his daughter physically, this is confusion. And you see a lot of people that when you talk about gender confusion, really in the Bible, it tells you this type of thing brings confusion. And that's why I think you see a lot of people saying, well, am I this, am I that, or I have emotions here, I have feelings here, is because it does, according to Scripture, when lines are crossed, and these lines in the Bible were specifically family members having relations within the family. I'm talking about sexual relations within the family. It says this is confusion. And so a lot of times when a young boy, and let me get real serious here and just show you some compassion so you won't think I'm trying to be Mr. Hard here. But most of the time, if you talk to men who have been in the homosexual lifestyle, there's three types. There were those who experimented as they got kind of pulled in, and they don't really have an interest, but they're kind of hanging with the guys, and so they're in the lifestyle. And then you have another group who got pulled in because of a molestation that happened as a child. This has happened to you. I didn't know this. I watched the life of Billy Preston. I used to listen to Billy Preston all the time. Billy got molested in a church. And all his life, I think it was until the end of his life, someone said he struggled with the feelings of the homosexual lifestyle, but it was because he got molested. And they tried to always get him to talk about it. He wouldn't talk about it. He'd shut down. He got on alcohol. And so a lot of times alcohol addiction and pharmacia addiction or even drug addiction is trying to cover the pain. See? So I'm not rebuking those who are in this. I'm trying to say this is how the enemy is getting in. So what we have to do is figure, how do we get the enemy out? I'll tell you this in just a minute. And then there are images. Sometimes I told them this morning, we bring something in our house that can open up the door to a particular spirit. And I don't have time to get into that. I wish I did. And then there's psychic hotlines. Now, the biggest waste of money that you would ever spend is on a psychic hotline. Because what they do, now I found out how this works, okay? A lot of times they want your birthday and your last name. And they have you can't get this, but if you're a car dealer, you can get it, and some other things. But they have computer programs that where are you from, okay, give me they get the basic information, and all of a sudden, bam, they know you got 3 kids, and they know you work at so-and-so, and that information is public record, but you just can't get it at any time. And so they'll get the information, and it's just a woman sitting there being paid to do this, and she looks you up on the computer and gives you 4 or 5 bits of information. So you think, boy, wow, I'm on something here. But the information's already out there. Now, can I ask you a question? How crazy is it for you to pay $5 a minute for somebody to tell you what you already know? You got 5 kids. Oh! You're married. Oh! you work at Wendy's. Oh, this is amazing. You just paid somebody $15 to tell you what you already know. Dumb. See, I found out a long time ago, there's some things that are just dumb, and there's no pill for stupid. You can't take a pill, drink a liquid, and get better, you know. Are you listening? And to show you how crazy this thing is on psychic hotlines, because everybody wants to know their future. Can I be honest with you? I don't want to know everything about my future. I want God to let me know what I'm supposed to do and pursue it. Because somebody said, wouldn't you like to know the day you're going to die if you're going to die? No. Can I tell you why? You would dread the rest of your life dreading that day. Let's say God told you 3 years from today, you're going to be killed in a car wreck out here or somewhere. You're just going to be, let's say he says you're going to die. Could you enjoy living for 3 years because you'd be, I got 900 days left. I got 700 days left. And that day you'd be laying in the bed. You won't go nowhere, and you die of a heart attack because the stress of dread killed you. Stress of dread killed you. It was a self-fulfilling prophecy. So, let me talk to the young people real quick, because this is about them, and those of you that are here and parents can help me. I call it the Samson generation. His birth was announced by an angel. His assignment was to deliver God's people. But here's 5 things he did. Watch carefully. Number 1, he told his parents what to do instead of them telling him what to do. He controlled his parents. Now, I've told my boy, I'm still paying the bill. And my rules matter, not yours. My little girl, she's so precious. She does everything she's told, but she's just 14. She ain't hit 16 yet. That's what every dad tells me. But Amanda knows. If mom and dad are paying the bill and feeding you and taking you around, then you live by my rules. But Samson didn't want to live by his mom and dad's rules. So he told them what to do. Number 2, he dated outside his faith and started dating people that didn't even like his God. Whoop, mistake. You don't kiss a prince, or you don't kiss a frog to get a prince. You get warts. That's in fairy tales. Ladies, you will not go down to the Applebee's bar and find your man. Because that man you find is trying to find 5 other women besides you. And once he gets you, he going to go find those other 5 he missed. Preach, I will. So, number 1, now I'm helping young people. Your parents who really care about you, and believing parents love you, so listen to them. Number 2, don't ever date outside your faith. Now, I'm not telling you them boys and girls inside your faith are any better. Oh, you don't want me to go there. I had an overseer one time when I was 18. I was walking with a girl, just walking at a youth camp. He called me in, and he said, don't you hang around that girl. She ain't good. Yes, sir. Okay, what do you know? He said, well, I'm telling you, just you be careful. You're a young preacher. And I went to walk out the office, and Brother Lahan said, Perry, y'all know Lahan? Perry, come in my office. I said, what have I done now? He's the state evangelism director. He said, you see that girl I saw you walking with? You better get away from her. He said it just like that. I said, what do y'all know that I don't know? He said, I can't tell you. But I don't want you to be with her again. Don't let me see you with her. So what I did, when I had 2 men of God telling me to dump her, I wrote her a note and said, I ain't hanging around you, bye. That's a true story. These are men of God. And I found out one of them told me that one of his relatives had slept with the girl. He said, now I knew that. I didn't want to tell you till I wasn't going to say nothing negative about the girl in front of you, but I'm telling you, he told me later, that's why I said get away. I said, thank you, Jesus. You spared me from some kind of trial. Oh, no, y'all 3 clapping at me like y'all ain't never dated somebody bad. Come on, it never happened to me. I thank God it never happened to me. I don't tell everything I don't tell my wife everything. You understand what I'm saying? She told me one time, I don't know how many girlfriends you had, and I don't care. I'm the one that got you. Some went all over me when I said that to you. So, number three, Samson's friends were Philistines, and he kept hanging around the wrong people. And it kept getting him in trouble. Number 4, he flirted with the enemy time and time again. And 5, remember, he was a Nazirite. You're not supposed to drink wine, touch a dead carcass, or cut your hair. He drank wine, and the Spirit came on him. He touched a dead carcass, and the Spirit came on him. But because he had such a vow with God, when he broke vow 3, he broke covenant. See, God was merciful with him even when he was messing up. But when he broke number 3, he broke covenant, and he lost his anointing. And he said, I'll shake myself as before, but he did not know the Spirit of God had departed from him. So listen to me carefully in closing this, because I want to help the parents. Parents, first of all, you have got to be in charge of your family. Dad, you've got to step up, and Mom, you got to step up. Number 2, every wayward child that is now an adult, who is now saved, who was on drugs, alcohol, or just bound up, they all have one thing in common. This is the most amazing thing. I was just on TBN. They were talking about it. All those 5, in a few weeks, there's going to be a group of guys. They're African-American guys. They are the Jackson 5 of the Christian world. They are off the chain. Oh, my goodness. And I was just with them in Nashville. And Let me say this. All of them had the same story. I heard my mother praying. All 5 are saved. All 5 love Jesus. All the kids are saved. And I said, how did your mom and dad get all of you fellas saved? And they said, prayer. Prayer. Mama prayed all the time. Dad, they'd lay hands on us and pray. They'd rebuke the devil off of us. They'd call us in. It was pray, 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 pray. It wasn't just rebuke. So mom and dad, listen, you can rebuke that child till you're blue in the face. But when you walk in there and shut the door and lock it and say, I'm laying right here, you sit there and do your thing. I'm about to pray. There's something that happens. Praise God. There's something that happens when they hear your voice. And when they hear you pray. And mom, this is for you, mom and dad. Mom and dad, number 3, love your child unconditionally. No matter what they do. The hardest thing I ever did, and I don't want to embarrass my boy, and this probably shouldn't even go on tape. And Pam, if I don't ever need to say this again, you tell me after service, and I'll never tell this story again. But my boy was underage. He's 17 years of age. And one night we get a call, a phone rings. What was it, like 3 in the morning, and the phone rings. And as a police officer said, Reverend Stone, we have your son outside in the driveway. Could you come out here? And I'm thinking, oh my Lord, what's happened? He got out of the house somehow. We didn't know it. We have a little dinger on the door, but Pam takes her ear, I tell her she takes her ears off. She's got those hearing aids, and she can't hear a thing. If the trumpet sounds at the rapture, she'll never know it till she goes up. Because really, but she snores. Now, she says she don't, but I got a phone now. I can prove it. I can tape her on my iPhone now. But I wear plugs in my ears, don't I, baby? And then, so when a storm passes, somebody said, you hear that bad storm last night? We slept right through it, like Jesus in the boat. And we didn't hear him go out. So I go out there, and there's a lady officer, and there's a male officer, and both of them know us because we're very known in town. And what had happened is my boy had gone to a convenience store and found a guy, and this guy was doing this in the town, and he would buy the kids 6-packs, the kids. And he said, give me 1 beer or 2 beers out of it, and you can keep the rest. And he'd go in there and buy. And this convenience store owner, he happened to be from India, he knew what the guy was doing, letting him do it. So they sold that to my son. So my son is half drunk. I'm telling this story. And he comes in and hits a little baby deer, and he starts feeling convicted over the deer. And calls the police. So the police show up, and he's afraid he's hurt his car, and he's afraid he's hurt the deer, and he's underage, and he'd been drinking, and the police show up and said, son, your driver's license say you're 17. You've been drinking? And he's as honest. When you confront him, he's so honest. Yes, sir, I have. He said, you know you can't do that. Where'd you get it? Well, he told them. They said, son, and they called me out, and they said, no, Reverend Stone, we got to do 1 or 2 things, because he called us. Now, I know it's in your driveway, but he called us here, and because he's been drinking, we had to examine him. We're either going to have to give him a fine or take him to jail. And I looked at my boy. It's 3 in the morning. I said, you're going to jail. And he said, I'll never talk to you again. I said, right. Next time you need gas, we'll see. And I said, take him on. I watched them handcuff my boy, put him in the back of a police car, and take him to jail. Now, do you think I went back to bed and slept? You don't think it was the hardest thing I ever did in my life? And the next day I had to go somewhere, and I told Mom, I said, Pammy, you're going to have to take care of this. And they called and said, well, you can come and get him now. And that rascal, I got him home, and I said, son, that was the hardest thing I ever did. I said, I know it was probably horrible being in jail. He said, no, we had a bunch of Mexicans in there. We told jokes all night long. I could have slapped him. It didn't do nothing for that boy. What good did that do? And of course, we're best friends now, like I said, when he needs help. But God, this is what happened. We prayed. Me and his mama have prayed for years. A lot of you know my boy has struggled with some stuff. And we kept praying, and we hold on to God, and we have seen a real, and Robbie and Tammy know this, they know the situation, change in my boy. He's matured now. He's talking about work. He's talking about marriage. He's engaged to get married, and goes on missions trips. He goes with me to Israel. Loves going to Israel. And Mom and Dad, I just want to say, now he's not all the way there yet, but he's getting there. And we're going to hold on till he gets there. Now listen, and when he gets there, we're still holding on. We're still holding on, okay? I want to conclude with what I told the devil one time. And this is for you, Mom and Dad. How many of you have an unsafe child? Raise your hand. How many have an unsafe grandchild? Anybody? All right. I said this one time because the devil tried to kill my boy one time. Amanda was just so tiny, she probably don't remember this. Maybe she does. But he was messing with pills, and he took 70 pills at one time. And his eyes were dilated and big, and he was sweating like he was running a race. And when I checked his heart, it was beating so fast I couldn't count it. I said, we got to go to the emergency room. I drove him. I didn't wait for an ambulance. He had his boxers on. We didn't even, and a T-shirt. I didn't even let him have time to put pants on. I was scared to death my boy was going to die. And again, I don't know, I would never embarrass my boy, but this is part of my life that has helped me to teach others how to wait on the Lord. And I'm only saying it for that. And we found out he took that many pills, and Pam and Amanda are Pam's just out there praying, and she don't know what's going on. I go back in the emergency room. They hook him up to monitors, and his heartbeat was 190 a minute. And that's 45 minutes after the pills. I said, can you pump him? They said, we can't do that now. It's already in the system. We're not going to do that. The doctor, God bless him, was a North Cleveland Church of God member who knew me and Pam personally. We go to church at North Cleveland. And he was so scared. The reality of what he did hit him. And then the reality of what could happen hit me when the doctor said, Reverend, come here. He said, I'm not going to try to scare you, but 17 kids, actually now 18 kids have died by doing the same thing your boy did in this hospital. I said, does it make news? He says, not often. We protect families. We don't talk about that. And of course, word gets out. Oh, Jesus. Then he said this to my boy. He said, son, hold this in your hand. It was one of the, if you press it, a buzzer goes off. He said, now, if you get a chest pain, severe, you hit this immediately. And now the doctor's scaring me. But that doctor didn't mean to do this. He didn't do this on purpose. But he walked out the door and stopped and turned around and said, but I can't guarantee you, son, I can bring you back. And my boy looked at me with a look I'll never forget as long as I live. That was, Dad, tonight, you got to keep me from dying. I ain't got no power over death. His heart went from 190 to 195. And I knew it could crash him. It could blow his heart up. I said, son, calm down. It's going to be okay. I promise you it's going to be okay. How could I say that? Because I told the devil, God did not give me this boy to die a drug addict. God did not give me that boy, put my name on him, my blood in his body, and in my DNA for him to die lost in a drug deal. And I said, God, tonight if I got to stay up all night and pray. And I did. You listen to the end result. And that night I said, devil, I'm going to make you pay for touching my boy. I didn't even know what I was saying. Today, ladies and gentlemen, years later, honey, how many years ago was that, you think? 7? About 6 maybe? About 6 years. Today, my boy's doing so much better. He's got one issue he's dealing with, but he's going to get over that. But he's doing better. But listen to this. Today, OCI, Omega Center International, 72,000 square foot ministry center exists. You listen to me. A 104-acre ranch exists. A prayer barn exists for one reason. The devil tried to kill my boy. That's the God. I'm telling you, the God's truth. That's why it's built. That's why it's there. That's why we did it. So in conclusion, let me say this. I want you